You're listening to SOPHFIFEST, where Soph meets Sci-Fi, film, TV, game and book reviews from the weird to the magnificent world of science fiction and fantasy. My boyfriend and I really love horror and sci-fi, and this seemed like the perfect merging of the two in Brightburn. I guess the short version is, young boy lives on a farm with his parents, comes of age, realises he's super in some sort of way, starts retaliating, pulls himself away from humanity, and then goes on a murderous rampage. That is the short premise of this. Obviously, you can't talk about this film without looking at Superman and comparing the two. UFO spaceship, check. Lands down on Earth, check. Has a baby inside, check. Farmland people decide to take the baby in and call it their own, check. Baby grows up, check. Has powers, check. And the powers as well are very similar. He can levitate, he can fly, he can move at super fast speed, he has laser eyes, and what else has Superman got? He is just super, he can do lots of cool things, and he has lots of knowledge about things. He's very smart, and so is the kid in Brightburn. So the parallels are pretty obvious. Also, Brandon realizes he has powers around puberty age, and I think in Superman, in the original version, like the comic strip, he also learns that he is super around puberty sort of age, but subsequent, TV shows and films and stuff have put it so that he learns when he's much younger. I've been thinking about Brightburn and why it is that he goes down this very different path, and I think it has a lot to do with who's accepting in his life. So there seem to be 3 clear points where he kind of loses his sense of humanity and he gets pushed further and further away from humanity, whereas Superman never does that. He has such love for humans, he never loses that. But in Brightburn, we've got Brandon is rejected by his peers don't like him. The girl that in his class he has a crush on, she likes him at first, but then he shows he is quite creepy and she rejects him. There's that scene where he's meant to be camping with his parents and then he flies to her place and puts some creepy music and she's scared, and then he is seen to be hiding behind the curtain and then he disappears. What I like about that scene and the scenes that follow with that is that she knows what she saw, and I know in a lot of horror films someone will say, I know what I saw this, people will not believe them, and then they'll say, oh well, maybe I imagined it, maybe I've been too stressed or whatever. But in this film, in Brightburn, the girl knows what she saw and she doesn't back down, to the point where Brandon falls down and she doesn't help him up, and then when she finally does, he breaks her hand. It's such a gruesome scene, actually. It's really horrifying. And the treatment of the school following this attack is so weird. They're just like, oh, it was an accident. But like, how does that even happen? You can't crush someone's hand like that. For that to happen, she would have to have the weakest bones in humanity. She would have to have hollow bones. She would have to have the bones of birds for that to happen. For him to reach out his hand, and then a 12-year-old boy crushing the hand of a girl. But the school completely normalizes it, like, oh, well, he's just a kid, you know how kids are. Anyway, that is what I think is one form of rejection, and the rejection of his other classmates is obvious because they pick on him quite a lot. Then we've got the rejection of his wider family and of unfamiliar adults, which you can see when he speaks to his auntie, who is like apparently the school counsellor, and by the way, the worst counsellor ever. There's a scene when the parents come to her as the counsellor and they've found these pictures under his bed that are of like guts and gore, and they want to know, is this normal? And she's just like, oh, it's just kid stuff, don't worry about it. And you can see her connection with that kid is so biased because it's her nephew, right? So she's like, oh, I know you're a good kid, maybe he's not a good kid, maybe there's something wrong. There's a scene when she's in council with him and she asks him if he feels bad for what he did to the girl, like breaking her hand, and he says no. He says that bad things happen to people sometimes, like shit happens, The auntie is visibly disturbed by that, and says that she needs to go talk to the sheriff about that because, you know, why is she telling him this? That's what I don't understand. Like, you don't... If someone has done something bad and you need to tell the sheriff about it, if someone says, I have, like, murderous intent, you don't then say, well, you know, I'm going to have to tell someone who's going to incarcerate you. Why are you telling this child? So that I think is part of the second rejection. And then the third rejection is where the parents realise that something is wrong. And throughout, the mum doesn't want to believe it. She's in complete denial. She actually doesn't believe it until she sees this book that Brandon has drawn in. And it's just pictures he drew with like red and black pen of him floating above the earth and of people dying. And that's when she is visibly upset and terrified. And I think it's the moment when she realises, oh, it's true, there's something wrong. Even though there's just a large amount of evidence to point to this conclusion, she's like, no, I don't believe it. No, he's a good boy. He's a good boy. So anyway, his dad makes a plan to take him to the woods, and he plans to shoot him in the back of the head with, I guess, a hunting rifle. He shoots it, and apparently the kid's skin is too thick or whatever. It sort of bounces off. And then he tries to put more bullets into the gun. What do you think trying again will do? I can't really remember. It's been like maybe a week since I watched this film. I can't remember what happens, but I think that his murder is very swift. For the mum, it's slow and horrible. He starts attacking the house. The mum calls the police. There's a really gruesome and quite amazing scene where she opens the door to the police. The kid then, I guess, shoots some lasers from his eyes and it completely explodes the sheriff. Blood and guts and everything go everywhere, all over the mum. Literally hit in the face with the pure weight of what he can do. She lures him to the barn with this whistle that they had played around with at the beginning of the film, like a call and response thing. She says, whatever you've done in the past, I know there's good in you. And hugs him, and at the same time she's doing an et tu Brutus, like she has a shard in her hand. And what I find really silly about this moment is that she could have like killed him very easily then, and subtly, but what she does instead is she takes the shard and she, you know, the arc of her hand is so high, she like takes it above her head. He realizes what she's doing. You don't have to be super to realize what's happening. If someone hugs you and one of their arms is like pulling away and it's in the air, not only can you feel it, but you can see it. So she gets thwarted by this, obviously, and then he like flies her into the air, crashes her head through this like barn. I have no idea how she didn't die then, to be honest. And then he just lets her drop. I think it's such a cold and callous way to kill her, because he could save her at any point. You kind of see everything in slow motion, and it's almost like that's the slow motion that he sees everything in, which means he has plenty opportunity, you know, with his super fast speed, to stop her at any time and save her at any time, between her being, you know, up in the clouds to her falling to her death. And he doesn't, he just lets her drop. It's so chilling. That scene and the scene when he kills his uncle, both of them use the same mechanism to emphasize how creepy these moments are, all in the fluttering of the cape. You know, in like Superman films or like Superman TV shows, there's like the fluttering of the cape. I remember the TV show, there was the fluttering of the cape and then the big S in front of it, and it was all in red, white and blue. And when you watched it, there was a feeling that I got of like warmth and pride and whatever, accompanied with this sort of jubilant music. But in the scenes in Brightburn, when he is floating in the air above his, I guess his prey in a way, it's completely soundless. All you can hear is the fluttering of the cape. I felt very disturbed by that. I remember a change in my body when I saw that was like a deep inhale of breath when you are deeply uncomfortable with something. So I think it was really well done. In the end, Brandon is completely untethered. You know, he has lost all of these connections to humanity, and then he goes on this murderous rampage, killing, you know, humans left, right and centre. And I think that those moments where he is rejected by so many people in his life is the only thing stopping him from being this kind of monster, and when they're gone, it's like nothing is holding him back. Then you see this big rampage. They kind of made it look like it was witnessed by, you know, the news or something. And that style really reminds me of a couple things. Obviously, there's like RoboCop, for instance, but it really reminds me of Psycho Gorman. These kids find this alien, they take him in. There's this end scene where there's a big fight montage thing. He succeeds, and then he promises not to kill her family. And you see these sort of news snippets of him going on this murderous rampage. And it just really reminded me of that in that moment. And the other thing that struck me is I find it quite strange that he has like no remorse whatsoever. There's not a moment to question whether he's doing anything wrong. There's no question in his mind. It's like all of who he was before just sort of washes away in that, and I find that not realistic. I think I've been going back and forth over whether I liked the film or I loved the film, and I love superhero films. I love how they've taken something and then turned it on its head, but I do find it quite derivative because it's not creating something new, it's taking Superman and calling him something else, but basically it is what would Superman do. So I think for that reason I thought it was a good film but not a great film. I can't deny though that there are some really great moments that are just so creepy. Yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot. I think I would recommend it to people. Yeah, really good film. So that's Brightburn. What have we got coming up? So for those who don't follow, I do a book club. It's quite a low pressure kind of book club, so if you want to read it, you can. If you don't want to read it, you don't have to. It's purely inspiration for you to read something new. For September, October, I'm doing a merged book club book. So look out for that on here. That's it for now. I will catch you next time. Bye!